Hall and Robinson, here's the bottom line with me on those guys. Dalton, at the end of draft season, when we're comparing notes, comparing rosters, I'm writing the what's in my wallet piece. I hope I have a fair amount of shares of these guys because they're young backs. They're on the escalator. They haven't had their best season yet. The Jets, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is anymore, but I think the Jets from 2 to 53 might have the best roster in football. They've upgraded the offensive line. Hall is now another year removed from a major injury. He looked like a difference maker last year. And all we need with Robinson, right, is adults in the room, like Kirk Cousins, like offensive coordinator Zach Robinson. They upgrade a quarterback in Atlanta. They get a coordinator we're excited about. And I mentioned Zach Robinson yesterday, I think, as being part of the Shanahan tree. Shanahan's actually kind of a stepfather in his tree. He's part of the McVay tree. And of course, McVay is part of the Shanahan tree. So I misspoke when I said that, but I'm excited to see what Zach Robinson can do. And the Falcons have such an easy schedule. Overwhelmingly, again, on that Warren Sharp graded, they're the outlier on the schedule, whatever strength the schedule means to you. So I've said a lot. I think we're pretty much in on Hall and Robinson. Anything you want to add on those two guys?
I will hype Hall just a little bit more. Averaged the third most half PPR points from week 5 on last year. That's when he finally started seeing full snaps returning from ACL surgery. And he had just 3.3 expected rushing touchdowns all season, just one carry inside the 5-yard line. Now he has Aaron Rodgers, a greatly improved offensive line. Mike Clay puts out these crazy long projections of everything. He has the Jets as the number 1 roster overall, accounting for all positions, ahead of the Niners and Chiefs. I mean, if their offensive line is good with that defense, this could be a problem for the rest of the league if Rodgers is healthy. BREECE Hall leads all running backs in yards per carry after contact and yards per route run since entering the league, and he dealt with a serious knee injury. So I have no problem if you want to take BREECE Hall number 1 overall in your
I don't either. And producer Colin says, is it crazy to take BIJAN 101? I don't think so. I think what we're going to see with McCaffrey being in the middle of his career, maybe even on the back 9. I mean, how many more years is he going to play, right? Do you want to be a year early rather than a year late? The Niners may not have a great offensive line. And I want to ask you one more thing about McCaffrey. Talk about running back insurance. Some people might say handcuff. We generally don't use that word over here at Yahoo. But do you think if you draft McCaffrey, is it important to get his quote-unquote backup? Do we even know who he is? That's one of the reasons why I'm generally not an insurance guy at running backs. I want to take somebody else's understudies and not necessarily my own. Do you think it's important to get insurance behind McCaffrey, or what's your stance on the contingency backup at running back at the position? Some people think it's important. Some people blow it off. Where do you come down on that?
One final fun BREECE Hall stat before I talk about CMC. Hall averaged the most fantasy points last year and the second most weighted opportunities when they were leading. The Jets are favored in 14 of 17 games this year. I mean, just be such a better setup.
The Jets, I can't believe I'm saying this. If you told me Aaron Rodgers is league average, I'm like, the Jets are going to go 12-5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick them to win the division.
Me too.
So Elijah Mitchell's... Elijah Mitchell,
whatever. Let them be good. I don't care. They've been bad long enough.
Elijah Mitchell entered as the favorite to be the backup for McCaffrey, but he's just constantly hurt, just consistently. Even Shanahan has admitted that Jordan Mason has passed him on the depth chart. Mason is a yards after contact monster. He's not super fast, but he's averaged 5.6 yards per carry over 2 seasons. He got 100% of the Niners snaps during the team's preseason opening drive. Finished it with a touchdown run, and then exited with the starters. They drafted rookie Isaac Guerrero. He's a non-factor after suffering a severe hamstring pull. I think Mason should be drafted in all leagues. We pointed out the CMC risk factor coming off 400 touches, his age, already dealing with an injury. I'm coming out with an article on Wednesday with undrafted players and running backs in Yahoo leagues who could be real fantasy difference makers, and Jordan Mason highlights that list.
A critical list to know. And it's so important to realize that running back, more than any other position for value, it's about getting roles and getting touches, and true skill level may not matter. I realize Puka Nacua happened last year, but the odds of a receiver coming out of nowhere and being like a top 10, top 15 receiver are so microscopically thin. But there will be a handful of running backs every year who nobody has much of an opinion on in the summer who come into, for example, when any major running back gets hurt, somebody's going to have double-digit touch up equity the next week. If Tyreek Hill gets hurt for the Dolphins, it's not like, oh, great. Well, whoever steps up next is going to, get 80% of Tyreek Hill stuff. It doesn't work that way. So knowing every running back on a roster, even the 3s and the 4s, I mean, that can have fantasy value down the line. Jonathan Taylor is the consensus running back 4 right now. Shane Steichen we like. Anthony Richardson will take off some of the rushing production, but Taylor was looking pretty good at the end of last year. How are you feeling about JT these days?